Close your eyes and let yourself drift into a world far older than the one you know. The air is heavy and dry, thick with the faint perfume of smoke, sweat, and sand. You lie on a mat woven from reeds, its stiff edges scratching against your bare skin. The walls around you are simple mud brick, crumbling here and there, patched by hand countless times. This is no palace, no temple, no golden chamber. This is the life of an ordinary Egyptian, the life that never made it into the scrolls of history. Morning begins long before the sun has risen. Outside, the world stirs with the gentle murmuring of the Nile. It is the heartbeat of this land, the lifeblood that decides whether you eat or starve, whether villages thrive or crumble into dust. Tonight it is calm, glimmering faintly in the pre-dawn haze, carrying the smell of wet silt and river weeds. Mosquitoes hum faintly in the dark. You scratch at your ankle where a bite has already risen, itching and swollen, but there is no ointment to soothe it. Your body aches from the day before. Your shoulders burn from carrying water jars. Your knees are raw from bending over in the fields, weeding among the barley. Already you feel hunger gnawing in your belly. Last night's meal was nothing more than a hard loaf of bread and a swallow of sour beer. The bread was gritty, laced with bits of ground stone that wore at your teeth with each bite. It filled your stomach, but only for a little while. Soon the emptiness returned, a constant companion that follows you everywhere. And now, as the faint glow of dawn bleeds across the sky, another day begins. You rise and step outside, barefoot. The ground is rough, scattered with pebbles, cracked from the dry heat. Dust coats your skin almost instantly. Around you, other huts come alive. Children stir, crying softly as their mothers hush them. Dogs bark in the distance. The faint lowing of cattle drifts across the village. Somewhere, a rooster crows. The Nile wind carries with it the smell of fish and rot, of wet mud and dung from the animals tied along the shore. You join the others at the riverbank. Already women kneel in the shallow water, filling clay jars, balancing them with practiced ease upon their heads. The jars are heavy, yet they walk with steady rhythm back toward the huts, the water sloshing gently. You bend to drink directly from the river. The water is cool, sweet with the taste of silt, alive with tiny specks and invisible dangers. You know it will make you ill one day, as it makes so many ill. But there is no other choice. You drink deeply, wipe your mouth, and rise again. The sun begins its climb, and with it the heat settles like a blanket over your shoulders. You are already sweating. Soon your linen kilt sticks to your thighs, damp and rough. Sand crunches between your toes. Around you the fields stretch outward, green with barley and wheat, dotted with workers bent low under the growing heat. You join them. Hours pass in rhythm, the scrape of sickles, the rustle of stalks pulled down, the heavy lifting of water splashing into channels to feed the crops, the thud of mud brick, shaped and stacked by men whose skin is cracked from the clay. The day drags on endlessly. Sweat pours into your eyes, stinging, blinding you until you wipe it away with calloused hands. Your back bends, your muscles burn, your breath grows ragged. This is survival, day after day.
At midday, the sun glares directly overhead. It is a hammer in the sky, pounding every man, woman, and child into exhaustion. Your throat is dry, your lips cracked. Shade is rare here, but you steal a moment under a scraggly palm tree, the rough bark digging into your spine as you lean against it. Your stomach growls. You break a loaf of bread, hard as stone, into chunks. You chew slowly, swallowing grit and sand with each bite. A neighbor shares a few onions, pungent and raw, their sharp taste cutting through the blandness of bread. You eat until the ache in your belly dulls, though hunger never truly leaves you. The work resumes. The day stretches on. Dust swirls in the air, clinging to your sweat. Your bare feet burn against the ground. You labor until your arms tremble with fatigue. Every joint aches. Every movement is slow, yet you must continue. To stop is to fall behind, to lose your place, to risk hunger tomorrow. At last, the sun begins to sink. The sky glows gold, then deep red, then fades into the cool blue of evening. You stumble back toward the village, body heavy, spirit worn. The Nile gleams like a ribbon of silver in the fading light, frogs croaking along its banks. Smoke rises from small fires as women prepare the evening meal. You sit cross-legged on the ground, chewing once more on bread and onions, washing it down with a mug of beer thick and sour. Around you, children laugh, playing in the dust, their voices shrill but comforting.
The night falls. Stars glitter overhead, bright and countless in the desert sky. You lie again on your reed mat, your muscles stiff, your stomach restless. Mosquitoes whine in your ears. The air is cooler now, though still thick with the heat of the day. You close your eyes, though you know tomorrow will be the same. Another sunrise, another day of labor, another test of survival. Could you last even one more day in this world of dust and toil? Or would the heat, the hunger, the endless weight of work break you long before the pyramids ever rose on the horizon? And as you drift toward sleep, remember, history is not the story of kings and monuments alone. It is this: the scratch of straw, the grit of bread, the burn of sun, and the struggle to endure. The night passes fitfully. Sleep is shallow, broken by the buzzing of insects, by the soft cough of a neighbor through thin mud brick walls, by the restless turning of children whose bellies ache with hunger. When the first glow of dawn pushes against the horizon, you rise again, eyelids heavy, body sore. The Nile stirs beside you, cloaked in mist, its surface silver and cool. The croak of frogs echoes in the stillness, joined by the bleating of goats. The day begins, whether you are ready or not. Children run barefoot through the dust, their hair tangled, their small ribs visible beneath linen scraps. Some carry water jars no smaller than their own bodies, learning early the weight of survival. Others trail behind older siblings into the fields, their tiny hands grasping at weeds or clutching reeds to twist into ropes. Childhood here is not a season of play. It is an apprenticeship in endurance. You watch them, and you wonder whether you would have had the strength to endure this life from your earliest breath. By the time the sun rises fully, the village is alive with sound. Hammers strike wood as men repair boats along the Nile's edge. Women grind grain between heavy stones, the rasping sound sharp and endless, filling the air as fine dust coats their arms and faces. That dust will wear away their teeth as surely as it wears away the stones themselves.
Chickens cluck in the shadows, dogs sniff at discarded scraps, flies swarm where fish are gutted. You join the flow of bodies heading into the fields. The Nile's water, once flooding and generous, has left behind rich black silt. Now the land must be carved with canals and ditches, every handful of mud shaped by human muscle. The sun grows hot almost instantly, pressing down with a force that makes every breath thick. You bend and lift and dig, sweat pouring into your eyes, your linen clinging like a second skin. Around you chants rise. Workers sing in rhythm, not for joy, but for endurance. The song carries them through the motions. Cut, lift, carry, repeat. The sound is hypnotic, blending with the rustle of reeds and the buzzing of cicadas. You fall into the rhythm too, though your body is clumsy, unused to such punishment. Your hands blister, your back screams, and already you feel the weight of defeat pressing against your ribs. Could you truly last a day, even a single day, beneath this sun?
At midday, the overseer passes. His staff strikes the ground with authority, his eyes sharp as he surveys the work. He carries a lash at his side, though today he does not use it. Still, the threat hangs in the air heavier than the heat. You keep your head down, your movements steady. Around you, no one dares falter. The Nile gives life, but it demands a heavy price. And those who fail to keep pace risk losing everything. The break comes when the sun stands highest. You huddle in a patch of shade, tearing into bread as dry and brittle as clay. A few figs are passed among the workers, sweet and soft, their juice sticky on your fingers. You drink deeply of beer, thick and unfiltered, sour on your tongue but filling in your belly. Conversation is sparse. Voices are low, as if every word wastes strength. You chew slowly, each bite a reminder of grit grinding against your teeth, each swallow a reminder of how thin the line between nourishment and pain can be. The afternoon stretches endlessly, yet you return to the fields because there is no choice. The sun turns the world white and gold, bleaching the sky until your eyes ache. Sweat runs in rivulets down your chest and back. Flies bite at your legs. The Nile glitters in the distance, mocking you with its coolness, though you know its water carries sickness as often as it carries life.
When evening finally arrives, the relief is almost dizzying. The air cools, the light softens, and shadows stretch long across the land. You trudge back toward the village, sandals of woven reeds flapping uselessly, barely more protection than bare skin. Smoke rises from cook fires, the smell of onions and garlic sharp in the air. Children laugh again, their joy unbroken by the hardships of the day, chasing each other until they collapse in dust. Women hum softly as they stir pots. Men sit in small circles, their voices murmuring prayers to the gods who hold their fate. You sit with them, your body trembling with exhaustion. You chew once more on bread, dip it in beer to soften it, let the sourness wash over your tongue. Above you, the first stars blink into the desert sky, cold and eternal. Someone whispers of Ra, the sun god, whose journey through the underworld brings him back again tomorrow. You wonder if you too have the strength to rise once more when morning comes. The night deepens. Frogs sing at the riverbank. Mosquitoes swarm. Somewhere, a baby cries in the dark, and a mother rocks it gently on her lap, whispering lullabies as old as the stones of the pyramids. You close your eyes again, but your sleep is restless. Your body begs for rest, but your mind cannot escape the truth. This life allows no softness. It demands everything, from the moment you wake until the moment you collapse again. And so the question lingers as you drift away. If one day leaves you broken, what would a lifetime here do? Could you survive the cradle to the grave in this land of sun and stone? Or would the Nile itself wash you away like so many forgotten names carved into sand? Morning again. The Nile mist lifts in pale ribbons, and already the village stirs. But today, instead of rushing into fields, you are drawn into another rhythm of life. The rhythm of birth, of family, of childhood shaped by the gods and by the Nile. A woman crouches on a low stool in a dim, smoky room, her body taut with effort. She grips two wooden handles, her face slick with sweat, her cries rising like a chant that echoes through mud-brick walls. Around her, women murmur prayers, midwives kneel, oil lamps flicker. The smell of incense struggles to mask the heavy odor of blood and sweat. A new voice pierces the air, thin and sharp, and the midwife lifts the slippery, wailing infant into the light of Ra's mourning. The baby is rinsed in Nile water, rubbed with natron salts, swaddled in linen. A small amulet is tied at its neck, warding off demons. For every breath here is fragile, every new life a gamble. Childhood in Egypt is not soft. The little ones run barefoot in dust before their first teeth fall. They are clothed in nothing but sunlight until they grow older, skin browned by the relentless sun. They play with clay dolls, reed boats floated in Nile pools, and knuckle bones tossed in games of chance. But alongside play is labor. By 5, a child carries water jars. By 7, he helps thresh grain or herd goats. A girl learns to grind flour, weave linen, stir clay pots. Childhood is training, not escape. At night, the family gathers beneath a low roof. The father speaks softly of fields and floods, of debts owed to temple scribes, of the overseer's demands. The mother hums as she patches linen, her hands rough and cracked. Children lean against her, heads heavy with sleep. The household is bound by routine, by survival, by prayers whispered to household gods whose small clay figures sit in niches above the hearth. As children grow, the gods are never far. Each day begins with offerings, bread left at small shrines, water poured in bowls, incense smoke curling into the air. The Nile itself is holy, its flood a gift of Hapi, its cycles more powerful than any king. The sun that burns you is also Ra's eye, watching every move. To live here is to live beneath the gaze of countless unseen forces. Protection is begged at every turn, amulets against fever, spells against scorpion sting, charms for safe childbirth, songs to drive away the spirits of the dead who might return with hunger. When sickness comes, as it always does, there is little comfort. A child lies fevered on mats of reed, flies gathering at damp eyes. The priest-physician murmurs spells, grinding herbs, smearing honey, reciting charms that stretch back centuries. Sometimes the gods listen, often they do not. Many children never see adulthood. Graves line the edges of the village, tiny jars and toys buried with small bones. Mothers weep softly, their tears mixing with Nile silt. Then return to grind grain and fetch water, because life leaves no time to stop. And yet, joy flickers in this harshness. Children's laughter echoes as they run through date palms, their voices sharp and high like birds calling at dawn.
They swim naked in the Nile shallows, splashing, chasing each other in the glow of the setting sun. At festivals, they watch dancers whirl and hear flutes trill, their eyes wide at the sight of painted boats drifting by, torches burning in the night. In these moments, life feels generous, the gods merciful. But always, the weight of survival presses close. Childhood is not a shield, it is preparation. Every lesson, to balance jars, to grind grain, to recite prayers, to obey, is meant to carry you into the unending struggle of adulthood. And as you lie again on a mat of reeds, your body sticky with sweat, the croak of frogs loud outside, you feel it. This land shapes you from the first cry to the last breath. Each stage is another trial. Childhood offers no escape, only the first steps into a life carved by sun, dust, gods, and the eternal Nile. Adolescence in ancient Egypt arrives not with celebration, but with responsibility. The moment a child's body lengthens into lean muscle and their voice grows deeper, the world demands more of them. A boy leaves behind games of reed boats and knucklebones and picks up tools heavier than his arms can bear. A girl who once ran barefoot in dust now grinds grain for hours each day, the rough stone cutting into her palms, her back bent until it aches. Childhood vanishes quickly here, swallowed by the unending cycle of labor. For boys of farmers, the Nile's banks become their classroom. They learn how to dig canals in the silty earth, how to lash reeds into makeshift rafts, how to swing a hoe in rhythm with the rise and fall of the sun. Their skin darkens, their hands harden, their feet toughen against stone and thorn. Apprenticeship begins without ceremony. A boy simply works alongside his father or uncle until he can keep pace. Sweat is the only proof of learning.
Some boys are chosen for different paths. A sharp mind and steady hand might bring one into the temple schools, where scribes train the few who can master symbols etched like bird tracks across papyrus. These boys sit cross-legged in dim rooms, reed pens scratching, their lips whispering lists of offerings, names of gods, measures of grain. To falter brings harsh punishment, for writing is power, and power is jealously guarded. The lash cracks as quickly in the school as it does in the fields. Girls, meanwhile, inherit the endless toil of the household. They learn the precise motion of grinding wheat into flour, the rhythm of weaving linen on upright looms, the art of stirring beer until it ferments, sour and thick. Their mothers teach them to soothe fevers with honey, to bind wounds with strips of cloth, to hum lullabies that carry babies through nights heavy with mosquitoes. A girl's adolescence is not a transition into leisure, but into the ceaseless demands of feeding and preserving life. By her mid-teens, marriage is likely, her own children soon to come. And then there are the chosen for war. Though Egypt thrives in peace as often as conquest, the Pharaoh's armies must always be ready. Adolescent boys train with spears of wood, their bodies drilled until their shoulders ache and their calves burn. They march beneath the sun until dust coats their throats, learning to obey the bark of commands without question. Bronze weapons gleam in the hands of their elders, the promise of future battles etched into every shining blade. For others, the mines await. Copper, gold, turquoise, Egypt's wealth pulled from the earth by young bodies sent into suffocating tunnels. A boy of 15 might be lowered into darkness, pick in hand, the air hot and choking. He will swing until his muscles quiver, until torchlight feels like the only sun he will ever see. Many never emerge again, their bones buried in shafts that echo with silence.
And yet, adolescence is not without flashes of pride. A young scribe mastering his first flawless text feels power hum in his veins. A girl weaving a flawless linen cloth knows her work will wrap the wealthy dead, carrying them into eternity. A boy proving his strength at the riverbank, dragging a net of fish against the current, stands taller as his elders nod approval. Each task, each hardship becomes a rite of passage, even if no one names it aloud. At festivals, adolescents taste the sweetness of life. They smear kohl around their eyes, oil their hair, adorn themselves with beads and shells. They dance beneath torchlight, their laughter rising with the music of flutes and drums. Boys glance toward girls with shy hunger. Girls meet their gaze with brief fire before returning to the circle of women. For a night, the burdens ease, and the youth of Egypt remind themselves that they are a land's more of them. A boy leaves behind games of reed boats and knucklebones and picks up tools heavier than his arms can bear. A girl who once ran barefoot in dust now grinds grain for hours each day, the rough stone cutting into her palms, her back bent until it aches. Childhood vanishes quickly here, swallowed by the unending cycle of labor. For boys of farmers, the Nile's banks become their classroom. They learn how to dig canals in the silty earth, how to lash reeds into makeshift rafts, how to swing a hoe in rhythm with the rise and fall of the sun. Their skin darkens, their hands harden, their feet toughen against stone and thorn. Apprenticeship begins without ceremony. A boy simply works alongside his father or uncle until he can keep pace. Sweat is the only proof of learning.
Some boys are chosen for different paths. A sharp mind and steady hand might bring one into the temple schools, where scribes train the few who can master symbols etched like bird tracks across papyrus. These boys sit cross-legged in dim rooms, reed pens scratching, their lips whispering lists of offerings, names of gods, measures of grain. To falter brings harsh punishment, for writing is power, and power is jealously guarded. The lash cracks as quickly in the school as it does in the fields. Girls, meanwhile, inherit the endless toil of the household. They learn the precise motion of grinding wheat into flour, the rhythm of weaving linen on upright looms, the art of stirring beer until it ferments, sour and thick. Their mothers teach them to soothe fevers with honey, to bind wounds with strips of cloth, to hum lullabies that carry babies through nights heavy with mosquitoes. A girl's adolescence is not a transition into leisure, but into the ceaseless demands of feeding and preserving life. By her mid-teens, marriage is likely, her own children soon to come. And then there are the chosen for war. Though Egypt thrives in peace as often as conquest, the Pharaoh's armies must always be ready. Adolescent boys train with spears of wood, their bodies drilled until their shoulders ache and their calves burn. They march beneath the sun until dust coats their throats, learning to obey the bark of commands without question. Bronze weapons gleam in the hands of their elders, the promise of future battles etched into every shining blade. For others, the mines await. Copper, gold, turquoise, Egypt's wealth pulled from the earth by young bodies sent into suffocating tunnels. A boy of 15 might be lowered into darkness, pick in hand, the air hot and choking. He will swing until his muscles quiver, until torchlight feels like the only sun he will ever see. Many never emerge again, their bones buried in shafts that echo with silence.
And yet, adolescence is not without flashes of pride. A young scribe mastering his first flawless text feels power hum in his veins. A girl weaving a flawless linen cloth knows her work will wrap the wealthy dead, carrying them into eternity. A boy proving his strength at the riverbank, dragging a net of fish against the current, stands taller as his elders nod approval. Each task, each hardship becomes a rite of passage, even if no one names it aloud. At festivals, adolescents taste the sweetness of life. They smear kohl around their eyes, oil their hair, adorn themselves with beads and shells. They dance beneath torchlight, their laughter rising with the music of flutes and drums. Boys glance toward girls with shy hunger. Girls meet their gaze with brief fire before returning to the circle of women. For a night, the burdens ease, and the youth of Egypt remind themselves that they are alive. But when dawn returns, so too does duty. Adolescence is only a rehearsal for adulthood, and in Egypt, adulthood waits with open jaws. Every skill learned, every scar earned prepares the young not for freedom, but for survival in a land where the Nile gives and the sun devours. And as you follow them into this stage, you ask yourself, would your shoulders bear the hoe, the spear, the loom, the pen? Could you pass from childhood into labor without protest, or would this land break you before you had even become grown? As the sun begins its slow tilt toward the west, the heat does not lessen, it deepens, pressing down on the land like a heavy hand. The fields shimmer, and the cries of birds grow faint as even they retreat into the shade of reeds. The Nile glows, its surface throwing back blinding light. By now, farmers are dragging themselves through the final hours of toil. Muscles burn, eyes sting, but the work cannot stop. Irrigation ditches must be checked, weeds pulled, animals fed, tools repaired. A single missed chore might bring disaster weeks later when the harvest proves short. You notice how the rhythm of life is governed not just by need, but by ritual. At the edge of the village, priests begin preparations in small shrines and in the looming temple whose painted pylons rise like a mountain of stone. The scent of burning resin drifts across the fields, frankincense and myrrh, precious imports from lands far to the south. These smells cut through the odor of sweat and mud, reminding everyone that while they labor, the gods must also be appeased. Farmers glance toward the smoke rising from the temple and murmur short prayers under their breath. To Hapi, for the Nile's waters. To Osiris, for the growth of barley. To Ra, blazing mercilessly overhead, for mercy as much as strength. Children gather around their mothers in the village courtyards, helping prepare the evening meal. Grinding stones rasp, producing the harsh sound of grain reduced to flour. This is the background music of Egyptian life, the scrape of stone on stone, day after day, year after year. Women crouch on their knees, pushing heavy stones back and forth across lower slabs, their arms and backs aching. By the time a woman is 30, her joints creak, her teeth are worn, her body already aged beyond its years. In this world, life expectancy is short, and survival into middle age is a mark of resilience.
As the flour is kneaded into dough, small fires are lit, sending smoke curling into the hot air. Clay ovens glow red as bread bakes inside, filling the air with a warm, earthy aroma that competes with the pungent smell of dung fuel. Beer jars bubble as fermenting mash is stirred with wooden sticks. This beer, thick and cloudy, is not a luxury. It is survival, the safest drink for adults and children alike, full of calories and energy. In the central temple, the pace quickens. priests in clean white linen, shaved and washed, move in precise patterns, chanting hymns as they lead sacred animals and offerings inside. To the common people, the rituals are both mysterious and essential. They will never see the innermost chambers, never glimpse the statues of the gods, never handle the sacred relics, but they hear the chants, smell the incense, and see the priests carry offerings, meat, bread, flowers, beer, and know that this endless cycle is what keeps the gods favorable. Without it, the Nile might not flood, the fields might wither, the sun might refuse to rise. Meanwhile, traders return from the riverbank with news. Boats have come down from the south, laden with gold, ivory, incense, and exotic animals. Others arrive from the north, carrying cedar wood, copper, and wine. The sight of these boats, with their wide sails and creaking timbers, excites the imagination of villagers who have never left their land. Yet for most, this world of trade and luxury is distant. Their lives remain tied to the mud beneath their feet. And so, as afternoon deepens, a strange duality fills the air. Toil in the fields and ritual in the temples. Mud on the skin and incense on the wind. Bread rising in village ovens and offerings rising in the sanctuaries of gods.
By the time the shadows grow long, exhaustion hangs heavy over every face. Even children slow their games, their feet dragging as they chase one another between mud brick walls. Families look forward to the evening meal, not because it is rich, but because it is the moment they can finally rest together, if only for a short while, before sleep and another day of struggle. As the sun finally begins to sink toward the western horizon, the land of Egypt changes color. The golden light softens, stretching shadows across the mud brick walls and the furrowed fields. The oppressive heat eases slightly, replaced by a dry, cooling breeze that sweeps in from the river. This hour is both relief and reminder. The gods have allowed another day to pass, and now night creeps closer, mysterious and uncertain. Villagers gather in their courtyards and rooftops, the air alive with the sounds of cooking. Smoke rises in thin blue trails from clay ovens, mingling with the pungent smell of dung fuel, roasting onions, and fresh bread just pulled from the fire. Children hover around their mothers, tugging at their tunics, eager for food. The evening meal is not a feast, rarely anything more than bread, beer, and perhaps a few vegetables, lentils, or dried fish if luck allows. Meat is rare, often reserved for festivals or wealthier households. Yet even this simple fare feels like abundance after a day of ceaseless labor. Families squat on reed mats, dipping hunks of bread into bowls of lentil stew or into jars of thick, sour beer. The bread is rough and chewy, flecked with grit that grinds down the teeth of everyone who eats it. You imagine sitting here, the earth still warm beneath your feet, the voices of neighbors drifting over the mud brick walls. The meal is quiet, punctuated by laughter, children's chatter, the occasional cough or complaint. For most, this is the most peaceful moment of the day, a pause before sleep. Meanwhile, the temples awaken in their own way. As the western sky burns orange and red, priests ascend to the rooftops of the sanctuaries to greet the setting sun. They raise their arms to Ra, chanting prayers to guide him safely through the underworld. Incense burns, its smoke curling upward as if to follow the sun into the dark beyond. The rituals are somber, for night is not simply rest, it is a time when chaos threatens, when serpents and demons lurk in the unseen world. The common people, though barred from the holy chambers, share the fear. They glance westward, murmuring small prayers to keep themselves and their children safe until dawn. In the village, torches and small oil lamps are lit as darkness spreads. The Nile gleams faintly in the starlight, black and endless. Across its waters, the croak of frogs begins, joined by the low hum of insects rising into the night air. The world grows alive again in different ways. Dogs bark at distant sounds, donkeys bray, and owls call from mud-brick rooftops. Sleep comes early for most, for the day begins again with the dawn. Families stretch out on mats of woven reeds, the cool night air slipping through windows without glass, only shutters or hanging cloth. They lie together, parents and children, their bodies pressed close for warmth and safety. Fleas and lice make sleep uneasy, crawling across skin and hair, but exhaustion is stronger than discomfort. Within moments, the steady breathing of the household blends with the soft hiss of the desert wind. But for some, the night is not restful. Guards patrol the edges of estates and temples, armed with staves and clubs, keeping watch against thieves or wandering animals. In wealthier homes, servants move silently, preparing for the next day. On the river, fishermen push their small boats into the dark waters, carrying torches that flicker against the black surface as they cast their nets. The Nile at night is dangerous, its banks shifting, its depths full of creatures, but hunger drives men to risk everything.
Above all, the stars blaze. To the Egyptians, these are not distant fires, but divine lights, guiding the souls of the dead and marking the path of eternity. The constellations tell stories of gods and goddesses, of the endless struggle between order and chaos. Looking upward, you feel both awe and unease. To live in this world is to know that every action, every harvest, every prayer is part of an eternal cycle far larger than yourself. Night in Egypt is beautiful, yes, but it is never safe. Without modern comforts, you would lie awake, listening to the whispers of wind and river, fearing what might move unseen in the dark. Midnight in ancient Egypt carries a silence that is never truly still. The air is cool now, a welcome break from the day's searing sun, yet the land is restless. Beyond the mud-brick walls of villages, jackals prowl, their sharp cries echoing across the fields. Dogs bark nervously in response, and somewhere by the river's edge, a crocodile splashes into the dark water. To live here is to sleep with one ear always open, to understand that night belongs to other creatures as much as it belongs to humans. Inside the homes, families sleep close together. Mats of woven reeds creak as bodies shift. Children stir and whimper, scratching at the fleas that bite endlessly. The smell of sweat and smoke clings to the air, mixing with the faint sweetness of oil lamps guttering low. Dreams in this land are never dismissed as random. Egyptians believe dreams are messages from gods, spirits, or the restless dead. A dream of clear water may be a blessing. A dream of snakes may be a warning. People wake in the night, whispering their visions to each other, hoping to ward off misfortune.
Across the village, the temple remains alive, even in the deepest hours. Priests, sleepless and ritual-bound, continue their tasks. In chambers lit only by flickering lamps, they recite hymns to guide Ra, the sun god, as he journeys through the underworld. Each night is a cosmic battle where Ra fights the serpent Apophis, embodiment of chaos, threatening to swallow the sun forever. If the priests fail, if rituals falter, dawn may never return. This is the belief that weighs upon them as they burn incense and offer prayers in the silence of night. Meanwhile, in the necropolis beyond the village, the dead lie in their eternal houses of stone and sand. Tombs painted with scenes of life, feasts, hunting, music, are meant to provide comfort for the soul in eternity. Yet tombs are also watched carefully, for thieves lurk even in darkness. Poor villagers whisper about spirits that wander at night, the Ka of the dead searching for food or water left in offerings. Some place bowls of beer or bread outside their doors, just in case a restless soul comes wandering. Better to appease the dead than risk their anger. For the living, the night is also a time of quiet labor. Bakers rise long before dawn, grinding grain under the rasping sound of stone, preparing dough that will feed the workers of the coming day. The pounding of pestles and the low murmur of voices carry through the darkness. Fishermen remain on the river, their torches bobbing like distant stars reflected on the water. Nets strain with the weight of fish, while their arms ache from pulling. Danger is constant. Crocodiles circle, hippos grunt in the reeds, but hunger outweighs fear.
If you were here, lying on a reed mat in this world, your sleep would be shallow, interrupted by the buzz of insects, the occasional cry of a child, or the far-off scream of a hunting animal. Without locks or strong barriers, you would never feel truly secure. Even the wealthy, behind higher walls and guarded gates, know that night is when chaos tests the order of Maat. And then, slowly, the silence shifts. A faint gray glow begins to touch the eastern sky. The stars dim. Roosters stir. The priests prepare their final hymns, knowing that soon Ra must reappear in glory. The cosmic battle has ended, for now. Another day is about to begin. The first pale light of dawn creeps over the horizon, washing the desert and riverbanks in muted gold. Shadows stretch long across the mud-brick walls, and the village stirs once more. The world awakens with a rhythm as ancient as the Nile itself. Children stretch and stumble barefoot across dusty courtyards. Women lift water jars from small wells. Men sharpen tools in preparation for another day of unrelenting labor. Even before the sun fully rises, the smell of bread baking and beer fermenting drifts through the alleys. Bakers pound grain into flour, knead dough and shove clay loads into red-hot ovens, while women prepare thick porridge and lentils for the family meal. The aroma mixes with the earthy scent of damp mud and river silt, reminding everyone that life is both brutal and sustaining here.
The river is already alive. Fishermen push boats into the gentle current, their nets poised for the first catch of the day. Children run alongside the banks, balancing jars of water or reeds to sell at the local market. Cattle and donkeys bray, and the occasional cry of a bird pierces the morning air. You would feel your lungs tighten in the dusty heat, your muscles screaming from yesterday's labor, and realize that even the simplest movements, lifting, bending, carrying, demand every ounce of endurance. As work begins in earnest, the temple rituals commence as well. Priests in white linen robes chant hymns to Ra, to Osiris, to Hathor, and to all the gods whose favor is necessary for the survival of the land. Smoke from incense coils upward in thin spirals, carrying the prayers of the living to the heavens. Offerings of bread, beer, and flowers are placed carefully before the gods' statues. Every act of devotion is repeated daily, a constant reminder that survival is tied as tightly to divine favor as it is to hard labor. In the fields, the sun climbs higher. Farmers bend and lift, pull and sweep, sweat pouring down faces already tanned and hardened by years of toil. Blisters form, backs ache, and yet the work cannot stop. The land is demanding. The Nile gives, but only if you respect it. Miss a canal, neglect a furrow, fail to chase the weeds from the crops, and famine could follow. Children shadow their parents, learning the rhythm of survival, their small hands doing their best to ease the workload. Midday arrives with oppressive heat. Dust swirls in the air, sticks to sweat-soaked skin, and lodges in the eyes. Workers take brief respite where they can, dipping hands and faces into the Nile, or resting under scarce shade. The priests continue their chants, oblivious to the sun's cruelty, ensuring that Ra will continue his journey across the sky. Meals are simple, hurried, and necessary. Bread, lentils, a few onions, maybe a scrap of fish. Each bite fuels labor, sustains life, and reminds everyone of the precariousness of existence.
By afternoon, exhaustion dominates. Blisters sting, muscles quiver, and the air hums with fatigue. Yet there is no pause beyond brief breaks, no respite beyond short prayers whispered to the gods. Every movement is a choice between survival and collapse. Those who fail to keep pace, children, the elderly, the weak, are reminded in subtle ways. A glance from an overseer, a lost basket of grain, a cracked clay jar. Life here is unyielding. And still, through this daily cycle of dawn to dusk, there is rhythm, even beauty. The Nile sparkles in the sunlight. The fields are rich with green shoots. Children's laughter occasionally pierces the toil. The distant temple's smoke coils upward, a silent witness to the enduring human struggle. This is ancient Egypt, harsh, magnificent, and unrelenting. As evening descends once more, the village slows, though never fully rests. The heat of the day fades into a lingering warmth that clings to walls and earth. Shadows lengthen, stretching across furrows and rooftops, and the sky deepens into gold, then burnt orange, before dark blue and violet settle over the land. This is the time when survival demands shift from labor to vigilance. Families gather for the evening meal, the simplest sustenance after a day of ceaseless work. Bread, lentils, and a small amount of fish or onions fill bowls and jars. The meal is eaten quickly, for even in the quiet of dusk, life in Egypt demands attention. Children learn their place at the table, quiet, patient, obedient, yet already bearing the lessons of work, of restraint, of preparation for the day ahead. Their eyes are bright, but wary, for every child knows stories of illness or accidents that take peers before they even reach adulthood. The Nile gleams in the fading light, reflecting the torch fires of distant boats returning from fishing or trade. Crocodiles lurk in deeper waters, their eyes catching the last glimmers of the sun. Farmers and herders bring livestock closer to the village, ensuring that no stray animal falls victim to predators or thieves. The village is alive, but the life here is raw, fragile, and constant. Protection is never optional. Inside homes, women prepare for the night. Water is drawn, fires are banked low, and mats are laid for sleep. Mothers soothe infants with whispered songs, often carrying the small burdens of grief for those children lost to fever, infection, or the unforgiving Nile. Midwives may still tend to the sick or pregnant, moving between households like silent guardians. The smell of oil, resin, and smoke lingers, a constant presence in the air. Meanwhile, the temple's rituals continue in quieter, more solemn tones. Priests light lamps, chant prayers for Ra's safe journey through the underworld, and tend the statues and offerings. For them, night is not leisure, it is vigilance. If they falter, the balance of Ma'at, the divine order, may be threatened. Their work is invisible to most villagers, yet it underpins every hope that the Nile will flood correctly, crops will grow, and disease will not sweep through the village. The night deepens. Insects hum, frogs croak, and the occasional owl calls from rooftops. The wind carries the mixed scents of river, mud, cooking, and incense. Sleep comes, but lightly. Even in the dark, dangers linger. Disease can strike without warning. Small animals carry parasites, and every newborn or young child is precarious in health. Families rest close together, bound by the knowledge that survival is collective.
If you were here, lying on a reed mat in the dark, you would feel every ache from the day, every bite from insects, every tension in your body. You would know fear of the night as a constant companion, fear of the river, of predators, of sickness, of unseen spirits. And yet, as the stars wheel overhead, a sense of continuity emerges. The same sun will rise tomorrow, the Nile will flow, and people will rise again to labor, pray, and survive. This cycle, dawn to dusk, labor to ritual, life to sleep, is unbroken. Ancient Egypt does not pause. Life is harsh, relentless, and unforgiving. To live here is to exist in a constant negotiation with sun, river, gods, and time itself. Amid the relentless rhythm of work and ritual, there are rare breaks, moments when the village comes together to celebrate, to honor the gods, and to glimpse joy beyond survival. Festivals punctuate the calendar, tied to the cycles of the Nile, the phases of the moon, or the birthdays of gods. Even the poorest families make small sacrifices to join, for to miss a festival is to risk the gods' displeasure. On these days, the air is thick with incense and color. Clay lamps flicker against painted walls, and the cries of priests chanting hymns echo across courtyards and fields. People dress in their best linen, even if it is faded or frayed, and children are washed in Nile water adorned with beads or small amulets. Musicians play flutes, lyres, and drums, creating a rhythm that threads through the crowd. Dancers whirl in intricate patterns, their movements mimicking the myths of gods battling chaos, of creation, of life emerging from the primordial waters.
Food is abundant for these occasions. Barley bread is richer, flavored with honey or dates. Beer flows more freely, its sweet, thick liquid raising spirits and loosening tongues. Occasionally, roasted meat or fish is shared, a luxury otherwise unavailable. Families sit together in courtyards or open spaces, laughter mixing with the music, children chasing one another in circles of light and shadow. Even the elderly, bent and weary from decades of labor, join in small ways, nodding, clapping, or murmuring prayers of thanks. Temple ceremonies during festivals are even more elaborate. Priests carry statues of gods through the streets in ornate barks, decorating them with flowers, oils, and fine linen. The air is electric with anticipation and reverence. Villagers follow, chanting and offering small gifts, bread, beer, or woven goods. The rhythm of drums and the piercing sound of reed flutes carry through the town, binding the community together in awe and devotion. These are moments when the presence of the divine is palpable, when the harshness of daily life is momentarily suspended by collective celebration. Yet, even in joy, danger and hardship linger. Festivals constrain the resources of a family, requiring extra food, water, or labor to prepare. The sun still beats down, and children can fall ill from heat or exhaustion. Crowds are never entirely safe. Accidents, fights, or disease can ripple through the gathering. The fleeting joy is always tempered by the knowledge that life will resume its harsh demands the next day. At night, torches light the way home, casting flickering shadows across the streets. Families return to their homes, tired yet invigorated, carrying the memory of the day like a talisman. They eat one last simple meal before settling on mats of reeds for sleep, hearts full of stories, songs, and visions from the festival. Even as they close their eyes, they whisper prayers of thanks, hoping the gods remember them kindly in the days to come.
These moments of celebration, though rare, are the threads that hold life together. They remind the people of Egypt that beyond toil, danger, and disease, there is still beauty, music, devotion, and community. And for a brief time, even the poorest child, running barefoot across the village, feels the pulse of life in a way that work and ritual alone cannot provide. Beneath the beauty of festivals and the steady rhythm of daily life lies a constant shadow, the ever-present danger of disease, famine, and war. Ancient Egypt may have been rich with civilization, temples, and art, but survival was never guaranteed. Even the strongest farmer, the cleverest scribe, the most skilled artisan could be struck down without warning. Disease creeps silently. Malaria and dysentery follow the Nile's floods, spreading swiftly through villages. Water from the river, though vital, carries unseen threats. Even the purest seeming supply can harbor parasites that twist the stomach and weaken the body. Fever sets in, skin flushes red, joints ache, and coughs pierce the night. Mothers watch helplessly as children whimper in pain, unable to offer medicine beyond bread, water, and prayers. The sick are isolated on mats or simple beds, their moans blending with the low hum of insects and the distant calls of river birds. Mortality is high. Many never survive their first decade, and even adulthood is no guarantee. Famine, too, stalks the people. If the Nile fails to flood adequately, the soil dries, crops wither, and granaries empty. A season of drought or a mismanaged canal can devastate a village. Families ration whatever remains, barley diluted with water, lentils split into tiny portions, stale bread chewed sparingly. Hunger gnaws constantly, leaving children small and weak, their growth stunted, their energy sapped before adolescence even arrives. You would quickly understand that every meal, no matter how simple, is a gift earned through struggle.
War is another shadow looming beyond the horizon. While Egypt's borders are generally secure, skirmishes, invasions, and rebellions erupt unpredictably. Men, even adolescents, can be conscripted to fight. Bronze spears and shields gleam in the sun, and the dust of the battlefield mixes with the smell of blood and sweat.
Families pray fervently for the safe return of fathers, brothers, and sons, knowing that even a single wound can become fatal without proper care. The threat of violence is always tangible, a reminder that peace is fragile. Even within the village, danger can be personal. Fires spread quickly through the mud brick homes, easily ignited by cooking fires or lamps. Predators, jackals, crocodiles, and snakes are constant hazards, especially for those working near the Nile or in the fields. Children wander too close to water or hot ovens, accidents claiming lives without ceremony. Life is cheap, and death is often sudden. And yet, in the face of all this, the people of Egypt endure. They adapt, pray, labor, and find moments of joy between fear and hardship. Each day is a negotiation between survival and the inevitability of mortality. They celebrate when they can, work when they must, and whisper prayers every night for the safety of their families. If you were dropped into this world, you would feel the fragility of life in every step, every bite, every breath. Your modern comforts, medicine, clean water, stable food would be gone. Hunger, fatigue, illness, and fear would dominate. Most would not last a week, let alone a lifetime. As children grow, the demands of life in ancient Egypt intensify. By adolescence, they're expected to contribute to survival, learning skills that will define their adult roles. Boys follow their fathers into the fields or workshops, carrying water, learning to plow, or shaping clay and weaving baskets. They quickly learn the unforgiving rhythm of labor: sun, sweat, repetition. Even play is tempered by necessity, often helping with chores rather than idling.
Girls, meanwhile, are trained in household skills from a young age, grinding grain, fetching water, tending to younger siblings, and preparing food. By their early teens, they are often married or promised in marriage, their value measured by productivity and ability to maintain a household. The rituals of courtship are brief and pragmatic. Love is a luxury rarely afforded when survival depends on every hand at work. Marriage in Egypt is both a social contract and a practical arrangement. Couples are bound together not just by affection, but by necessity. Husbands provide labor and protection, wives manage the household, and together they ensure that children, livestock, and food survive. The average adult life is defined by a continuous cycle of work, with little room for leisure. Even in wealthier households, where scribes or artisans might have lighter burdens, the pressures of taxation, temple obligations, and societal expectations remain constant. Parenthood brings both joy and dread. Children are precious, but their survival is never guaranteed. Illness, malnutrition, and accidents claim many before adulthood. Parents work tirelessly, not just to provide, but to protect. A day in the life involves overseeing chores, teaching skills, guiding behavior, and constantly scanning for threats, from disease to flooding, from predators to human conflict. Love exists, but it is intertwined with fear and responsibility. Aging in ancient Egypt is harsh. The sun, labor, and inadequate nutrition take their toll. Backs stoop, joints stiffen, teeth decay, and eyesight weakens. Few reach what we consider old age. Elders are respected for their experience, wisdom, and ability to teach, yet their bodies betray them daily. Their roles shift from active labor to guidance, mediation, and storytelling, passing on knowledge, ensuring traditions, and supporting younger generations as best they can.
Even in moments of rest,
The cycle never truly stops. Food must be prepared, fires banked, water drawn, offerings made to the gods. The demands of survival press on every adult, shaping behavior, movement, and thought. To exist here is to negotiate constantly between human limitations and the necessities of the environment, the society, and the divine. For a modern observer,